And we are back on a special edition of GPS from Davos, Switzerland. Before the break, you saw my interview with the president of Israel. Now, onto that country's foe, Iran. Joining me now, of course, is a man who needs no introduction, probably the most famous, visible face of Iran over the last 3 decades that people have encountered. Deputy Foreign Minister, Ambassador to the UN, now Vice President. Javad Zarif, pleasure to have you on.
Good to be with you.
Let me begin by telling you what it looks like to me right now in terms of Iran's position in the region. I think one could make an argument that Iran has never been in a weaker position. You made a huge bet on Assad in Syria, enormous amount of money, arms, militias. Assad is gone. Hezbollah, a key ally in Lebanon, has been decapitated, decimated in terms of its force. You have relations with Hamas. Hamas leadership has been destroyed. Its tunnel infrastructure has been destroyed. The whole idea of the axis of resistance, these militia groups, these sub-state actors that were going to push back against Israel, against the Gulf Arabs, perhaps American interests, it all seems to be much, much weaker than it was before. I'm sure you're going to disagree, so tell me why.
Well, first of all, let me make 2 points, because we don't have much time. First point, in 1982, if you can remember, Sharon invaded Lebanon, pushed all the way into Beirut in order to basically decimate the Palestinian resistance. If you remember, he sent Arafat to exile, to Tunisia.
Tunis.
So what happened? From 1981 to 1987, Islamic Jihad was born in 81, Hezbollah was born in 82, and Hamas was born between 85 and 87. So I wouldn't suggest anybody to start rejoicing over destroying Hamas, Hezbollah, or the Palestinian resistance, or to cutting Iran's arms, because the resistance will stay as long as the occupation stays. I think right now, as you look at Gaza, Hamas is still there. Netanyahu did not achieve his goal of destroying Hamas. Hamas is still there. Israel had to come to a ceasefire, temporary. I hope it will be permanent, for the sake of 50,000 people who were massacred, genocide by Israel, so that there won't be another 50,000. But resistance is not dead. I can tell you that the wishes for the resistance to go away has been based on a misrepresentation, a framing by Israel, that this is not an Israeli-Palestinian issue, but an Israeli-Iranian issue. That's number one. Number two, go back to 1981, 82, and move all the way to 2023, 2024. Give me a single instance when this resistance operated on Iranian behalf. They always worked for their own cause, even at our expense. They never carried our orders. We didn't know about October 7th. Actually, we were supposed to have a meeting with the Americans on JCPOA renewal on October 9th, which was undermined and destroyed by this operation.
But then it makes the case that this has been a very unwise investment for Iran to be funding all these militias, which are not even doing Iran's interests.
Well, let's not talk about funding, because a lot of people are funding a lot of things and they're not successful. But let's focus on the fact that we have supported people's rights. People will continue to resist. Now, why am I making this statement? Because if you want to resolve the problem of Palestine, You should not look at Iran. You should look at the Palestinian issue. As long as the Palestinian issue is there, the struggle will be there, the resistance will be there, and there will be support from the international community, including from Arab allies of the United States.
I take your point, but if I may, with respect, you haven't answered my question, which is about Iran's position. You've lost a key ally in Assad, you've lost, or at least you have a much weaker ally in Hezbollah. Your air defenses have been destroyed. We have reports or you tell me if it's not true, we have reports of generals in Iran talking about the fact that they've paid a very heavy price for the support of Assad. Is it not true that you are in a much weaker position?
But let me make, again, a couple of points. We fought Iraq when we didn't have any air defense, when we didn't have any weapons. We didn't have anything. We stood against Iraq for 8 years, and we did not give up an inch of our territory. So, first of all, the story about destroying our air defense is a story, and there is a reason behind it.
You're saying it didn't happen?
No, we suffered, but it didn't mean that we lost our air defense. But I answered your question by saying that find me a single instance when these groups, which are, I think, erroneously called Iranian proxies, operated on our behalf. If they did not operate on our behalf, what do they do to our strength? Now, you can tell me that we worked on their behalf diplomatically and that gave us strength. But we never tried to cash our investment in the region. You now tell me that this was a foolish investment. I believe that you and I belong to a school of thought in social science which does not believe in only material power. We, both of us, believe in ideational power. The fact that Iran can, in fact, move people in the streets in many parts of the world gives us power, with or without Hezbollah.
But let me ask you about that.
We still possess that power. We can still move people, inspire people, as we did in the beginning of the revolution.
Next on GPS, could President Trump revive a nuclear deal after famously pulling out of the last one 7 years ago? I'll ask Vice President Zarif when we come back. Back again to bring you more of my Davos interview with Iran's Vice President for Strategic Affairs, Javed Zarif.
U.S. intelligence says Iran is weeks, sometimes they say days, away from the breakout capacity to build a nuclear weapon. Is that true, and will you?
Well, had we wanted to build a nuclear weapon, we could have done it a long time ago. Netanyahu has been saying from 1994, 96, that Iran will have a nuclear weapon in 6 months. Now we're about, what, 30 years later, and we still are a couple of days away from nuclear weapons. Some people want to frame Iran as a security threat. Iranophobia, Islamophobia are tools to carry out programs like the genocide in Gaza.
Let me ask you about the Foreign Affairs article you wrote. You talked about how under Trump there may be an opportunity for a deal with Iran. I was surprised by that because Trump is, after all, the person who pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal, the JCPOA. Why do you think that the guy who pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal and reimposed American sanctions on Iran and said, I want maximum pressure on Iran, why is there an opportunity?
Well, there is always hope that people will choose rationality. So I hope that this time around, a Trump 2 will be more serious, more focused, more realistic, to know that the withdrawal that was imposed on him, and he has said it, that he did it for Israel. And he has said now that he won't do anything for any other country. He said it on his inauguration. After he withdrew from JCPOA, Iran has gained much more nuclear capability based on your breakout calculations. I don't do breakout calculations because we don't want to break out. But based on American breakout calculations, we were a year away from a nuclear weapon, and today, even the Americans say we are a few days away. So in terms of being able to dissuade Iran, it has failed. Now, it has imposed heavy economic cost on the Iranian people. Of course, the Iranian government is suffering, but the Iranian people and the most vulnerable groups in Iran are suffering the most.
There are people in Washington who talk about a new deal, a new Iran nuclear deal, but one that would also include a pledge by Iran not to continue supporting proxies or groups
we
like...
never had proxies.
All right, not supporting groups like Hamas, Hezbollah, and etc. Would Iran consider such a deal?
You see, the United States was always insisting that we should have a regional deal. Now we have a regional deal. We have good relations with Saudi Arabia. We have good relations with the United Arab Emirates. And you say our arms are cut off. So why do they worry about them? If Iran doesn't have any strength in the region, if Iran's arms...
No, but then a pledge not to help them rebuild would be... Would you consider that?
The problem is that's the wrong address. The address for the resistance in the region is in Tel Aviv, is in Israeli occupation, genocide, apartheid, and violation of Palestinian rights. The address is not in Tehran. The United States and Israel for the next 50 years can push Iran. That will not resolve the Palestinian issue. They want to resolve the Palestinian issue. The only solution, and I think everybody who has spoken here in Davos 2025, probably with the exception of the gentleman you interviewed yesterday, have insisted that the only solution is a viable Palestinian state. Unless that solution is reached, there'll be more resistance, there'll be more groups, with or without Iran's help. Iran has always supported struggle of people for their human rights, for their right to self-determination, and will continue to support that. But that's not the cause. There has to be a struggle before you can support it. Your support does not create the struggle. There is a struggle. There is a resistance caused by the fact that there is an occupation, aggression, violation of human rights.
Thanks to Vice President Zarif. Next on GPS, Trump says tariffs are coming on China and Canada and Mexico and even the European Union. Are we entering a new era of trade wars? I'll ask the Director General of the World Trade Organization.